what we're going to really talk about is how to pick a GRC tool in the modern age. And this can become a pretty hairy exercise given the amount of choices that are available on the market. And we've had the luxury of speaking with a lot of people in the roles of trying to make this decision, and we're hoping to share some of those experiences. So let's just dive right into it. And maybe Karthik, can we look at the next slide? Yeah. So the primary motivation to do this is that GRC tools are becoming more and more capability rich, and when it comes down to comparing them side by side and to evaluate whether they are a good fit for you or not, it can very easily and quickly become like a super features kind of a thing where there's a long laundry list of things that you might want to be looking at, and it's not clear how to make a decision which of these features are actually important for you, which may not be as important, and how do they actually fit into your workflows and your organization. So the real goal of this conversation between Karthik and I is to try and give you some method to the madness, some way of thinking about this so that it doesn't become overwhelming, and some way to structure your evaluation of a GRC tool so that you can go about this in a more calculated manner without getting overwhelmed, and while being a little bit more confident that you make the right choice for what this would mean for you. We are of course banking on a lot of shared experiences over here. As a result of what we do at Sprinto, we have had the opportunity and the luxury of speaking with a lot of people in roles related to GRC leadership or security leadership, and we are happy to share some of those experiences with the group over here. So just to map out what the next 20 minutes are going to look like, we're going to give you 3 themes based on which you can evaluate GRC tools rather than looking at it as a super feature. So we've sort of said that these are 3 most important themes that you'd like to look at, and then you could decide what features that you can look for under each of these themes. Now, the specific features that might matter to you will change depending on your specific scenario, but hopefully the themes will give you some some sort of a compass to think about how to go about this whole journey. We also are going to give you at the end of this, at the end of this talk, we'll distribute with all the attendees a spreadsheet which crystallizes what the framework that we're talking about and how to evaluate GRC tools, so that you can actually take home something and build on top of it. And that's a starting point, and you could build your own framework of how you want to go about your GRC evaluation journey. But that's a giveaway from us, and hopefully that will be useful to the people here. So yeah, the first theme or the first pillar that we that we wanted to talk about is that the most universal thing that we have heard from pretty much every GRC team that's out there is that the teams are typically lean, and there is a lot of busy work, manual, tedious, laborious work that is involved in just day-to-day stuff that happens around GRC. Nobody loves and wakes up in the morning thinking that, hey, I'm going to do a bunch of screenshotting and spreadsheeting today. That's not what gets people out of the bed. But unfortunately, the way GRC is typically run, that involves a large part of what you need to do in order to get this done. And I think the flip side of that is that like one of the things that you really need to invest in is to make sure that you're picking a tool that is going to help you eliminate a lot of that busy work and automate a lot of that busy work, so that as a team you can focus on more strategic initiatives. These are the things that will actually make you more secure, more privacy compliant, and those kind of things. So those are the things that you can spend your time on, rather than spending all the time that can actually be done by software. So I think that's the most important pillar that I would look for in picking a new GRC tool. Over to you, Vempi.
Right. So while we are talking about the themes or the pillars that are useful for coming up with this decision making process, we thought it'll also be useful to share a few key features that we have seen our customers or prospects evaluating when they're looking at various tools that are available in the market. The idea here is to not make this an exhaustive list, but to make it more of an indicative list. And like Girish mentioned at the end of this, we'll also share this in an Excel format so that becomes useful for your evaluation downstream. But when it comes to automation, I would say the first feature that we've seen, becomes important and useful, even during the implementation journey, is how many controls, have automated testing, right? You don't want to be testing each of your controls manually, so automation can solve a lot of that problem. There are integrations that are available to automate a lot of this testing nowadays. So looking for this measure of how many controls have automated testing is a useful parameter in your evaluation. And while that is said, you also want to be looking for what to do when automated testing is not possible, right? So there is always going to be the odd control where maybe because of a lack of an integration, or maybe the way that you have implemented the GRC program in your environment, there is a manual workflow that is needed to meet a certain control or to gather evidence. So how do you if the testing of that control is manual, how does the tool enable that and ensure that you're not having to work outside of the tool for the controls that where automation is not available. So this becomes an important parameter in your evaluation. The second one, like I mentioned, of course, I think everyone's aware that integrations are key to your success, with GRC automation tools. Definitely the breadth of integrations and the number of tools that you use in your organization that the tool supports, definitely a parameter that needs to be part of your checklist. But in addition to the breadth of integrations, we've often seen that another parameter for evaluation needs to be the depth of integrations in terms of the use cases that the integration can support for you. So when it comes to, I'll take an example of a simple project management integration like a Jira integration, right? So the use cases that you might want to solve with a Jira integration could be in terms of controlling access or managing access to the tool. It could be in terms of the change management processes within your organization running on the tool and that being mirrored or automated in the GRC platform. It could be the incident management processes that you're running on the tool, and you would want the GRC platform to automate the evidence collection of that process. So while on the face of it, it might just seem like it is one integration with one tool, that is Jira. It's the depth of the integration that is usually more revealing. Having both in your purview is usually useful when you're looking for the amount of automation that integrations can bring to the table. Needless to say, automation of evidence collection, while you and your team are busy ensuring that all the controls are being met, tested on a regular basis, there being the possibility of creating workflows when automation is not possible. All of that is on one side of the story. But you also want to make sure that you're not having to separately work towards evidence collection, right? Evidence collection needs to become more automated, so that that's kind of running, that's under the hood as far as you and your team are concerned. And tools are there are tools that can do this for you today. So definitely look for that parameter when you're evaluating tools. An important concern that we've also seen enter into our evaluation conversations is cross mapping across frameworks. And I'm sure many of the folks in this conversation would be aware that compliance is a never-ending game. It's a treadmill that you got to keep running on. And as your business expands, and there are usually more compliance frameworks that your business will need to comply with. And it becomes extremely important for the tool that you're relying on to make it easy for you to understand what does it take in order for our business to comply with a new framework, right? The cross mapping across frameworks is again available within tools, so you don't have to restart the journey from scratch when you begin your compliance journey with a new framework. You can use your existing GRC program or your compliance program to give you a leg up in the compliance journey with a new framework. Another important parameter, especially if you are already running a GRC program, through manual means within your organization at this point, is how the tool is capable of automating the migration of your existing program, especially your existing controls, right? Many tools nowadays have automated tests or checks that run in the platform, but how can those be mapped automatically to the controls that you are bringing onto the platform, rather than using the inbuilt controls of the platform itself? So this kind of magic mapping is also possible with automation tools. So especially if you're looking to bring your own controls into a GRC platform, I would recommend keeping this as a parameter that's important in your evaluation, because tools can solve that problem of mapping those tests or checks to your controls rather than forcing you to use the controls that the tool provides. One other thing that we've seen, not just at the time of evaluation, but also when a lot of our customers use the product on a ongoing basis, is that the nature of businesses today is that the maximum risk that we face is because of the vendors or the third-party vendors that we end up using to build our business, right? So most modern businesses end up using dozens, if not hundreds, of third-party vendors. And it is the risk that the third party vendors essentially bring to the table that results in risk for our business as well. And tools can solve for automation of vendor risk by allowing you to configure rules in terms of, hey, if this is the nature of data or the nature of access that the vendor has to your systems or your customer data, then the tool can actually automate the assessment of the risk and the categorization of the risk for you. And you don't have to do this every time you're bringing a new vendor on board, or every time you're conducting a risk assessment. This can be a continuous ongoing journey in your environment. The other part that also becomes important when it comes to vendor risk is, given that we're all working with dozens or hundreds of vendors, how do we track what are some of the breaches that our vendors might be subject to? Right, it's almost impossible to follow press releases or posts on what's happening out there in the world on a day-to-day basis, especially if you're using dozens or hundreds of vendors. So automation of breach notifications. So if there are any breaches that your vendor systems have been subject to, bubbling that information up to your own inbox and your own tool is something that can be automated nowadays. So I would, I think this is also a parameter that we've seen that the top security teams in the world have included in their evaluation, and it's recommended to include that in your checklist as well. This, I think, concludes the key features that we've seen on the automation piece. Anything to add here, Girish, before we go to the next pillar?
No, this looks quite exhaustive. This is great. We could move on to the next one.
All right.
Right. So, the second pillar, now you've done some work around ensuring that a large amount of busy work around your, testing your controls and collecting evidence around your controls is automated. But the second theme, or the second pillar that we often see where GRC's teams spend a lot of their time, effort, and mind space is just ensuring that all the work that is required to be done in GRC gets distributed and delegated across the company. At the end of the day, we all understand that while the GRC team is eventually responsible for orchestrating the work that happens related to governance, risk, and compliance, it is eventually the specific teams in the company who need to take on the responsibility of running the controls and collecting evidence around these controls and so on and so forth. It is a company-wide responsibility. What you have to be careful about, and what you have to ensure, is that the tool that you pick is going to help you make this coordination exercise easier. Typically different teams have different objectives of their own, and you don't want GRC and evidence collection and all of those kind of things to become like an impediment to what their day-to-day work is like. So the ability of your GRC tool to be able to break down those walls, break down those silos, and to be able to work across teams so that this whole thing works like a smooth engine is very, very crucial. And Karthik will talk a little bit about some of the specific features that you can look at while you're evaluating this particular aspect of a GRC tool.
Right. So yeah, rightly mentioned. I think GRC is quickly becoming a tool that's used across the organization, and not just limited to the GRC function. Especially because the integrations do a great job of uh, identifying gaps or identifying activities that need to be done in by the HR team or by the engineering team or by the infrastructure team. It becomes crucial for those teams to also contribute to ensuring success of your GRC program. So some key features that we've seen prospects and customers look for or use heavily once they've adopted the platform is having specific owners for the various components of your GRC program, owners for risks, owners for controls, owners for checks, and more importantly, having the ability to reassign certain areas of risks or areas of controls to different people in the organization. Also, being able to assign specific tasks to different people in the organization. Especially when somebody's away, you still want to make sure that the activities are getting completed. So how do you reassign this work? There obviously needs to be a mode of auto assignment, which can be overridden through manual overrides, and you might want to manually override and say, okay, I want someone else to look at this or somebody else to own this control or risk going forward. Now, while on one side you want tools are essentially enabling this to become a team-wide exercise, you also need to ensure that you have a bird's eye view on how are teams contributing, how well they are contributing to completing the tasks that are on their plate, right? So reporting around the task completion and the status of tasks that are on their plate becomes a super important feature. This is what enables you and your teams or for other teams to also have the visibility on how well they're contributing to the GRC program, and essentially making this a team-wide success. Another important aspect which we have found while working with customers is while on one side you want to make sure that more teams are utilizing the GRC tool, it's also possible that some teams might be more comfortable using the tool of their choice, and there could be a project management tool that's already embedded in the organization, and as a company you might want to continue using those project management tools. So how well does the GRC platform integrate with those project management tools and push the tasks or even sync the status of the tasks across both systems? This becomes a crucial element in the long-term success of the GRC program. Ensuring that your teams are able to work using the tools that they're already comfortable with, rather than having to unlearn or relearn like a new tool that they might not have a lot of expertise with. Especially if you would like your organization to continue using your existing project management tools, I think this becomes a important parameter for your evaluation. Right. Now, while you might want the task to be synced, or in some cases you might want some of the team members to come into the tool to perform their tasks, you also want to ensure that the tool is capable of sending alerts. That alerts could be in the form of emails or even the tools that your team is using on a day-to-day, like Slack or Microsoft Teams. And it's the daily nature of these alerts, whenever there is a gap or whenever there is a task that is pending on them, that makes it easier for other team members to contribute to the GRC program, right? This is not something that other teams have on the top of their mind day to day. So it becomes critical for the tool to push information to them when it is necessary for them to take an action without you or your team having to intervene. And again, needless to say, but an important or I would say a extremely crucial factor that plays in here is while the tool might be sending out the tasks and alerts to other team members and members of other functions, are they receiving reminders to complete their task should they not be able to complete it on time? And is there also an inbuilt escalation mechanism which avoids tasks going to a failed state, right? And that is something which GRC platforms can do for you. So receiving the notifications well in advance, well before they become important for your compliance or audit, and making sure that there is an escalation that is built in well before the due date of the completed of the task. All of this is possible on GRC tools nowadays. So I would strongly recommend looking for these features in the platform that you're evaluating, because for long-term success, it is not just important for all the automation to be available, but it's also important to distribute the work, have the visibility of the work, and allow ensure that the tool is capable of informing you when the tasks aren't getting done on time, right? So that's a useful feature. And while while the GRC tool becomes a widely used tool across the organization, you have your HR leaders, your engineering or DevOps folks also using the platform. You definitely want to make sure that the user experience is self, they can teach themselves or train themselves on the platform. And it starts with ensuring that they can log into the platform easily rather than having to remember a new ID or a password. So right from using the same mechanism that you use for the rest of your let's say your email provider or other login mechanisms, to ensuring that they can navigate the tool themselves without you having to train them or handhold them on a day-to-day. That becomes an important parameter in your evaluation of the tool as well. And last but not the least, your team members might be working at a time that is convenient for them. So having round-the-clock support when they need it, that becomes an important parameter in the evaluation as well. And we've seen teams being successful when they feel supported at any time of the day. So 24/5 or 24/7 support, as your team might need it, should be on your list of features or list of in your consideration set. Anything to add here, Girish, before we move to the next section?
I think this is pretty good. This is an important pillar, and just important to think along this angle as well.
Right.
Yeah. The third and the last pillar that we wanted to talk about is there is this promised land. This is the dream state of a GRC that we would like to take our program towards. And the way a lot of people have characterized and described the dream state is that can we basically just remain continuously compliant? Can we ensure that there is no last minute running around, no last minute bending over, just to make sure that things are in place for an audit? Can we make audits such that they are just uneventful, business as usual things which happen when they happen, and nobody in the org even barely recognizes that something like that has happened? And can we move to a place where these things are you're not compliant as of a certain point in time, but you are just continuously staying and maintaining your compliance status anytime, all the time? And it is actually possible today to pick a GRC tool that can help you get to that dream state. You could look at some specific features and functionality that can help you get there. Karthik?
All right. Yeah, I think again a very important pillar of any GRC program. But in the interest of time, I'll probably pick a few of the features that are that we've seen our prospects and customers evaluate and utilize. I would say clearly on the top of the list here is ensuring there is a dedicated evidence dashboard or dedicated dashboard for the auditors, so that what the auditors see and what they need to see is separated from what the GRC teams and the business teams need to see in order to maintain the compliance program. So that way they're focused on evidence that is useful at the time of the audit, rather than getting to see the detail of how the compliance program is being run on a day-to-day basis. So while that becomes a important aspect, a second important aspect which is closely related is sampling of evidence. You might while continuous monitoring of all of your data and continuous compliance is ensuring that you as a GRC practitioner are on top of your compliance program. You might not want to inundate the auditor with all of that data, and that becomes sometimes way too much data that the auditor might not even need, or it might not be useful for the audit. So you want to ensure that you are able to sample the evidence and send necessary packets of evidence to the auditor, So that also becomes an important parameter in your consideration set. And one of the things that I think GRC tools are able to do nowadays is because your risks are assigned to controls, and your controls are being continuously tested. You get to have a continuous risk monitoring and a continuous risk scoring. So which means that whenever there are checks that are not passing, and those checks are related to risks which are critical for your organization, you get to see them on a real-time basis rather than having to wait for an assessment that is done at a certain point in time during the year. Right, it becomes a very powerful tool to sleep well at night and wake up knowing that everything is in control. Yeah, I think a couple of other things that I wanted to also specifically talk about here are obviously ensuring that you're on a day-to-day, the new employees that are joining the company, they get to you get to configure what they need to do on a day-to when they join the company to comply with your policies, the security training, and so on. And also importantly, at the time of offboarding an employee, what is a checklist that you need to maintain at the time of offboarding an employee, especially deactivating access to critical systems, right? I think it's one of the areas where it's most tricky to maintain compliance, but I think tools can ensure 100% compliance in that area nowadays. I think last but not the least, I wanted to just talk about while it's important for the integrations to fetch all the data for the visibility of the GRC teams, it's a common case, extremely common case of having to exclude certain assets when it comes to your compliance program. This could be because you might have a specific set of employees in a region which does not support background checks, for example, or certain set of infrastructure assets where the effort to actually perform the compliance exercise far outweighs the risk that you face while not completing the test, right? So you might want to exclude those low-level assets from the program, and I think the tool needs to allow that kind of capability to say that, hey, these employees are exempt the background check, or these vulnerabilities are exempt the SLA within which we need to fix them. That level of control gives you the confidence that when you look at the tool and when you see a percentage on the dashboard, you're fully confident knowing that that's the real number that you need to be worried about, right? No false positives or false negatives. Last but not the least, control exclusion. So while you might have a set of controls that you're running within your GRC program, not all of those controls might be relevant for the purpose of an audit. So you also want the ability to control or monitor the controls which are being shared with the auditor at the time of the audit. So being able to exclude controls becomes an important parameter as well. Of course, there are a few more in terms of how well the data is synced between the source systems and the tool, as well as ensuring that there is an open API, so that in case there is a tool that in future we are unable to integrate with, you are able to push data and ensure the tool has the complete visibility of your compliance program. Those become important parameters as well. But yeah, I think we are happy to share this list, of course, after this call. But in the interest of time, I'll just move to the next slide.
Yeah, so we promised 3 pillars, but I think there is one additional thing that jumped out as we were compiling this list, and we've seen increasingly the top GRC teams look out for one more thing, and it would have been amiss to actually not talk about it. And the important thing and the theme that is basically coming out now is that conventionally, GRC has been thought of as a cost center. It's one of those things that companies have to do as a matter of internal hygiene. But we've seen that narrative flip on its head more recently. Increasingly, we are now seeing that the GRC efforts in a company are now more and more fueled by external drivers. Your customers, your partners, your board, your cybersecurity insurers, etc., are now demanding that you can demonstrate how you're running your security, privacy, and your compliance program. And it as a company, it allows you to confidently move as you're growing your business into new markets, new industries, new geos, and so on and so forth. So I think it's important to internally also start thinking about GRC as a revenue and a growth driver rather than just as a cost center. And I think there are some features that will actually help you demonstrate that power of your GRC tool in becoming like a partner in the growth of your company? Karthik?
Right, and yeah, extremely important pillar. We are seeing this being again, prospects and customers looking for these features very often nowadays. The most important one being how can we as a GRC team proactively demonstrate our security or compliance posture to the world, and in fact, is there a way that we can advertise this on our website? You're right. I think this becomes an important feature or distinction that that you would need to look for in your GRC tool. I think in a lot of tools it's called the trust center. This is where you could showcase the frameworks that you're compliant with. Have your policies, a list of policies that you're compliant with. In fact, even the list of controls that you want to that you're currently implementing in your environment. And you can control the visibility of all of this information, based on certain toggles, ensuring that only the relevant folks, who probably signed an NDA get access to more information versus others getting just a overview of your information. So all of this is again possible. There are features that allow you to do this, within GRC tools nowadays. So I think becomes an important parameter in your evaluation. Secondly, also the ability to respond to questionnaires to reduce your sales cycles. And we've seen that some of our customers receive dozens, if not more, security questionnaires on a monthly basis, and the amount of time that it actually takes to compile the answers, again becomes that busy work. No two questionnaires are the same, but there's always an overlap between sets of questions. So how can we, how can a GRC tool actually enable you to solve this problem, given that the GRC tool already has a picture of the controls that you're complying with, the frameworks that you're complying with, and the checks that are passing in your system? The tool can actually allow you to respond to questionnaires as well. And here too, there is an automation that's possible with especially with the advent of AI. A lot of the heavy lifting can be done by the tool rather than by the GRC team or even by anybody else within the organization. Again, last but not the least, I think we spoke about how compliance is you as a business can lead with compliance. So as as your business needs to expand to newer industries or newer regions, if you need to comply with newer frameworks, I think you also require the tool to provide you the confidence that this is exactly how much effort it takes to comply with the newer framework. So GRC tools can also provide you with readiness reports for several other frameworks that are available in the market today. And because there is a cross overlap between most frameworks that are out there, the GRC tool can do the heavy lifting of informing you that, hey, there's just a 20% additional effort, or these 8 controls that need to be additionally implemented for compliance with, let's say, a new framework. And that's the confidence that the GRC function can give to the management to say, hey, this is, we can essentially lead with compliance and security, and that becomes a growth or a revenue driver for your company. I think that's the last that we had on in our slide. Happy to take any questions. I think we have about 8 minutes left in the scheduled time.
Hey, thanks, Karthik and Girish. That was actually really fun to walk through, and also it was informative. So thanks for that. You guys always bring that mixture in. We do have a couple of questions there. First is from our live stream. So while there is emphasis on moving fast and scaling quickly, how do security leaders strike a balance between speed and maintaining a robust security posture when selecting GRC tools?
I really hope a GRC tool doesn't put you in a position to pick one over the other. That's the whole point of picking the right GRC tool. I think increasingly you can actually pick a GRC tool that is going to be fast to implement, gets you to value quite quickly, and so you don't have to go through long implementation cycles. That helps you run a security program without actually adding impediments in how you monitor and do evidence collection around the security program. So I think the question in a way answers itself. Like I really hope that after evaluating a GRC tool, if you're in if you find yourself in a place where you have to choose between the two, maybe you're not looking at the right one. A good GRC tool should ideally should allow you to get you the speed that you want, while eliminating all the work that usually happens, which is going to cause a lot of impediments as you go through this. That's my take on it. I'm curious what Karthik has to say.
Yeah, I think very similar thoughts. Tools need to be able to do things that we cannot do manually. I think the bar on the tool needs to be fairly high. I think it's important for tools to be able to ensure both speed as well as ensuring a robust security posture. And we are increasingly seeing evidence that it is possible to do both. And we are talking empirically here rather than theoretically when we say that it is possible to do both.
Okay, I hope that answered your question. I'm going to the next one. So this came as a question to both of you from LinkedIn, which is Girish and Karthik, in your experience, what are the fluff features that are often touted as must-haves?
Karthik, you want to take that? You've seen a lot more implementations.
Yeah, I think somewhat tricky one. I wouldn't say they're fluff features or anything to that effect, but perhaps some features that were assumed to be important at the time of evaluation, but didn't see as much usage, or the utility of that was fairly low at a later point in time. I think one of them was being able to download all the evidence by control, or download all of the evidence from the platform. I think that's usually something that we haven't seen too many customers actually utilize that feature. I think the way that audits work, and even if, let's say, somebody were to use two different tools, I think that's one feature that we've not seen used as much as it is asked for, perhaps. Probably I'll rack my brains to think of a next one, but Girish, if you're able to think of something else, like.
Yeah, I think you passingly mentioned one of these things in the presentation as well. I think I've often seen teams think a lot more about the breadth of integrations that the GRC tool offers, and and that's almost become like a vanity metric that, hey, so do you have so many integrations, etc. And what teams tend to forget in the process is that it's not just the breadth of integration, but the depth of integration that's also important. And the point is not that the breadth of integration is a fluff tool, but if it's taking your attention away from are the integrations actually eliminating the busy work that you're eventually going to do or not. If it takes your attention from that, then it becomes counterproductive. So I'd encourage teams to look a little bit more closely at having an integration doesn't necessarily mean that the integration is actually going to automate everything that you really want it to, and that might be a more useful way to look at it. That's my 2 cents on that.
Actually, now that you mentioned it, I think another factor that comes to my mind in terms of evaluation versus utility is the number of audit partners that the tool works with. So I think that resulted in us having to quickly onboard, I think, 150 auditors onto our platform. I think it was around Q4 of last year and Q1 of this year. We expanded our auditor network. But in terms of utility, again, I think we're still finding that 90 or 95% of companies end up working with the top 4 or top 5 audit firms that are on the platform, and the long tail of auditors, while they're available now, I don't think the utility is as high. So maybe again, in terms of maybe it's one of those metrics where if you're trying to compare 2 platforms, you probably use that as a metric to make a decision, but probably not such a useful metric to make a decision.
Okay, I hope that gave you an understanding, but if you do have follow-ups, we are linking Girish and Karthik's LinkedIn. You can ping them there as well. I'm sure they'll be up to answering. I'm moving on to the next one. So I think this is interesting. So it's if you had to choose between easy to use UI or round-the-clock support from a GRC tool, which one would you personally emphasize on more?
I, I, you're kind of asking like, okay, what can you live without, food or water? And I really hope when the GRC tool that you pick doesn't put you in a position where you have to pick between these two. I think the two are important for different reasons. And you should ideally look for both of them. Uh, and I think it's a little bit of a nuanced answer here. In my head is that easy to use UI for who. We often see that GRC teams are quite well versed with using the GRC software, but it's also important to evaluate whether it's easy to use for people who are not living and breathing and spending 8 hours a day on this software. They come in, do some tasks, and go out, and if the software is actually making their life easier in that process. So I think that's an important way to look at it. And at the same time, when there's a lot of talk about round-the-clock support, I think the quality of the support also matters rather than just the responsiveness of it. One of the things that I look for is, if I do ask questions related to compliance specifically, or which are not necessarily about the software itself, does the support is equipped to give me answers which are expertise related questions around compliance and GRC? Can I get some help there as well? So I think and I know I'm not answering the question directly, but I think the nuances of what is present in the easy to use UI and what is present in the round the clock support, it's probably a more useful way to decide like what would end up becoming more important for you. But I wouldn't pick a tool without either of these.
Yeah, I think just to double click on that, like I don't think one is an excuse for the other, and just maybe to dig a little deeper into like what form of round the clock support would be most useful. We've again seen, I think, platforms offer round the clock support, but it's primarily to administrators of the platform, which is always like a small set of users within your company. But what about all the other users who are not administrators, right? What about end employees who might need to log into an employee portal to complete their activities? Does the tool support them? Or is there a round-the-clock support available for them as well? I think those become, I would say, the nuanced parameters that determine the long-term success.
Okay, I think that should have answered the question. There are just two more left. Manish has asked, how easy is it to integrate with Microsoft Copilot AI, which would benefit, to simply put, context to fetch content out of GRC tool?
That's one of the things we are thinking about on our roadmap. We have a very I can't, of course, comment on how other GRC tools are looking at this, but specifically at Sprinto, AI is an important part of what we are trying to build capabilities for in our roadmap, and specifically Microsoft Copilot AI is one of the things that we are looking very closely at. So without giving out too much details, because it's a feature under construction right now, I can just say that it's something that we're looking closely at.
Okay. All right. I hope that answers your question. And we have one more question from Shekhar. Is this tool contribute to SOC 2 kind of report requirement?
I'm not sure I understand the question, Karthik. Do you want to take that?
Yeah, I think what the tool can solve is ensuring that you comply with SOC 2. But the SOC 2 report itself is provided by by a third party auditor. So again, this I can probably answer this specifically in the context of Sprinto and not in the context of how other tools or other companies provide this. But at Sprinto, the tool provides you a way to comply with the SOC 2 norms and ensure that you continue to comply with SOC 2. But the audit itself is an independent third-party engagement. So we have auditors in our network, but the report is typically provided by the auditors. I hope that answers the question.
All right. Yeah, I think with that we do come to the end of this masterclass, and